Hello, how's everybody doing today? I hope all is well. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of my podcast. Today's episode is entitled Chameleon, and as usual, I will start this podcast off with the quote: think as you like, but behave like others. If you make a show of going against the times, flaunting your unconventional ideas and unorthodox ways, people will think that you only want attention and that you look down upon them. And that's law number 38 from the 48 laws of power. Everything that's understood doesn't need to be said. This is something that my grandmother, my grandfather, my mom, some of the other elders that I've been around throughout my life has always told me. You can't always reveal the truth about everything. You don't have to let everything just be known. And this is another dichotomy because at our core and as a fundamental principle, it's honesty is something that should be a component of our life. It should be a foundational characteristic in our makeup. We should be honest people. But again, there's always a dichotomy. Sometimes there's people in this world, which I had to learn the hard way, that will use that honesty against you. And being honest or telling all the information in its fullness at the wrong time may work against you in what you're trying to do when you're trying to move through life strategically. We all know that life is a game, and the number one rule of most strategic games that I know is that you never show your hand. You never show your opponent what all you have. When you're playing cards, or whenever I was playing cards, any card game I've ever played, I never just got my hand and then, turned my cards around and was like, hey, look, this is what I got. I always looked at what I had, made a plan of how I could win based on the cards that I had, and then reacted accordingly to the move that my opponent made. Same thing with chess. When we started out playing chess, I had a strategy that I would have from the onset of the game, and then I would move according to that strategy with my opponent not knowing what I was doing, whether I was reacting to his move or he played into the strategy that I had at hand. So in order to be successful at playing this game called life, we have to move through life strategically. And that's something that I always talk about, is that we need to move through life strategically. And this is one of the, I'll say, harsher, lessons that I've had to learn, because, growing up in the household that I grew up in, I was very fortunate. I was very blessed. I wasn't exposed to a lot of the hardships and the realities of life. And even though I was exposed to some of the hardships and realities of life, my mother did a very great job of hiding the truth from us, or concealing what we were really going through at that point in time. And we didn't find out a lot of what we went through, what we were going through, until we were much older. And then I kind of look back and I was just thankful, that my mom did the job that she did. Because, there's a lot of people out there, a lot of parents that kind of just throw their kids, to the world and let them figure it out. But my mom, my grandfather, my grandpa, my grandfather, my grandmother, they didn't have that approach. They gave me as much mentorship as possible. They gave as much information as possible, and they shielded me from the world. So as I grew older, I didn't perceive people as though they are. You know what I'm saying? Like, I believe people who were who they said they were at face value. And because of that, because I didn't know the realities of the world, because I didn't know how people honestly and truly have the potential to operate. I'm not saying everybody operates like this in this manner, this fashion, but there definitely are people that operate in this world that do not have your best intentions at heart. And because I wasn't aware of this fact, I kind of believed the world was all sunshine and rainbows. I kind of got into certain situations because I wasn't really aware of what was going on. I wasn't really paying attention. I wasn't really conscious, and I wasn't even in that frame of mind that, somebody has something in store for me that isn't, necessarily what I would ideally call the best outcome. And that's not saying that people wish negatively on me, but they just might be selfish in the capacity that they're willing to do what they need to do at my expense. And again, this was something at the time when I was growing up, I did not conceptualize. And the first time I'll say it really hit me, like that lesson, came like full circle. I was really exposed to it was college. And that's when I learned that, like, hey, this world is really cutthroat. And, just because, you're a good person doesn't mean that other people out here are operating on the same level that you are. By showing your hand with those that don't need to see it, you jeopardize your standing. Just like I was saying about playing chess, if your opponent knows what their goal is to win the game, and they also know what your goal is, which is to win the game, but they know how you're going to go about it, now they're armed with knowledge, and knowledge is power. So if they execute based on that knowledge, they now have the upper hand in this game called life, because they not only know what their intention, their plan, and their means of getting that is, they also know what your intentions and your means of getting to that is. So by keeping information to yourself, by knowing who to trust and who you can tell information to, and operating strategically and cautiously throughout this world or throughout this life, you better insulate yourself from the vulnerability of people who aren't upfront with you and people who don't present their true and authentic selves at all times. We need to always be aware of our company, our timing, and our setting. Our company is the people that we're constantly around. How have they been to other people? How have they been to you on a consistent basis? What's their true motive? What's their true intentions? Like, based on information that you can gather, what can you build about this person? Like, not how they are sometimes, how they are all the time. Because you could try to hide your true self, but eventually it's going to come out. Some people are very, very good at it, but, eventually it's going to come out. So you need to be always taking in information, formulating new opinions, always being aware and alert of your surroundings, your company in particular. Number 2 is the timing. You always got to be aware of timing, because my mother always tells me this, and this is super true. And I've learned that this is extremely, important and relevant. I wish I would have learned this earlier in life, because I've always been the person that, hey, if I feel a certain type of way about something, I'm just going to say it, because I always felt like being upfront and blunt was the best way to go about it. But some people, don't like that. They don't like confrontation. They don't like being you being blunt or being just upfront and straightforward about things. Some people like for you to candy coat things, or to kind of beat around the bush, or kind of strategically say it. So my mother used to always say, a truth told in the wrong season is the lie. So even if you're telling somebody the truth, if the timing is off, it might not be the right time to be telling them that truth. So we need to be aware of our timing, because timing can have a very powerful impact on what you're saying and how the person will take what you're saying. And then setting. When I was in the Marine Corps, they always taught me to praise in public and critique in private. So, is what you're saying or who you're communicating with or what you're doing, is it the right setting? Do you need to be doing it at this point in time? Could you wait till another time? Like, maybe is it more of a one-on-one conversation? You need to just be constantly pulling in information about the company, keeping the timing and your setting. And with those 3 things, you can kind of formulate, is it the appropriate time to give out information? Should I withhold it? Should I be authentic? Should I move more strategically and not let out fully what I know, and just partially kind of give out a little bit of information time and time again and see what they do with it. Because I'm not teaching you, or I'm not telling you to be dishonest. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying be strategic. Play the, just because you have, a handful of cards doesn't mean you have to play your strongest cards up front. And anybody who plays spades or know how to play spades will get this analogy. And I had to kind of stray away from going into that rabbit hole of explaining spades, because I know a lot of people can't relate to that or might not know how to play spades. But one of the key strategies I use in spades is the kind of bait and switch on people. And it's just simply put, it's not playing your strongest hand first, all the time. You kind of gotta use that strategy to kind of feel the table and to read other people and stuff like that. And that's something that you can also play in life as well. You don't want to play your strongest cards first. You don't want to give out all your information, because that leaves you with nothing. You don't know if the other person is giving you the same respect of giving you all the information. So it's said that we show different people different sides of us at different times. And it's not being fake. It's just learning how to be a chameleon in your environment. So the you that you show your family may be very different from the you that you show your coworkers. The you that you show, tongue twisted again. The you that you show your significant others, your wife, girlfriend, might be different than what you show your friends. The you that you show the world might be different than the you that you show the people that you hold dear. And it's because you've learned that through time and time again, you can trust these set of people with showing your emotions, your vulnerability, and being open, as opposed to this set of people, which, if they had that same access, it might do you harm. And that's what I'm saying. Just it's something that we already do in life. We just don't pay attention to it. A lot of the stuff that we talk about is stuff that we already do in life. We just don't pay attention to it. And I'm just trying to bring attention to what we already do so that we can do it purposefully instead of doing it kind of accidentally or just off the cuff. Like, intentional living is what I'm trying to foster, what I'm trying to create. We need to be aware of what we say and what we do in every setting. This means mastering our emotions and controlling our reactions. I'm working on this. I am working on this. Mastering my reactions. I'm a very transparent person, and it's because that's the way I grew up. I grew up just being open, honest, and 100%. So like, if I feel a certain way about something, it's gonna show. I'm real bad about showing my emotions, making a face, or just reacting to a situation. Like, even in boot camp, my instructors used to get on me because they would tell me to do something and I would catch an attitude. I'd be angry or whatever. And they'd see it on my face or see my reaction, my body language, and they'd be like, "Oh, you're angry? Oh, you feel some type of way? What's good?" So I ended up doing a lot of push-ups and getting real strong because of that. And I've learned to better control my reactions because of that. It's a hard way to learn a lesson, but I mean, it is what it is. I'm glad I've learned a lesson. It's not as bad as it used to be before I joined the military. Also, controlling my emotions. Sometimes I let situations and things get to me a little bit more than they should. But again, like I said previously, I'm a whole lot better at it than I was in the past. And that's the goal, is every day in every way you want to get better at, developing yourself. You want to be at a higher level of maturity, a higher level of control, a higher level of focus than yesterday or 10 years ago or 5 years ago. Like, that should be the goal every day in every way, is just to get a little bit better. You're not going to reach perfection. It's just not possible. We're human, and to be human means to be less than perfect, but we can still strive. That doesn't mean that we can't strive to be perfect. Everything doesn't deserve a reaction. Everybody doesn't need to, because if you can, there's a science to reading people. And if somebody says something and you react a certain way, that gives somebody a lot of information, whether we know it or not. Most of communication is nonverbal, through our body language, the cues that we're giving off to people, and stuff like that. We can determine a lot of information from just body language in and of itself, and that's before you even open your mouth. So with that being said, if we always give a reaction every time somebody says something that doesn't vibe with us, or we don't agree with, then they'll be able to see that. And even if we're saying something with our mouth like, hey, no, I'm 100% on board, they've already seen the body language and your reaction of what they said initially. So now they already have the seed planted, or the thought planted, that, hey, this person might not like what I'm saying, or they're against what I'm saying. And then that might create certain issues down the road, depending on the type of person that you're dealing with. So it's best that you learn how to just be a chameleon in every environment. You know how to adjust yourself and adapt yourself to the audience that you're in. Every time is not the time to be 100% blunt, honest, and open about the truth. There's a lot to say for being strategic and maneuvering your way into certain situations and out of certain situations. I'm not saying don't be authentic to your true feelings. I'm saying play your role. Everybody has a role to play. And the most important part of playing your role is knowing your audience. Again, the true you is not the you that you always need to put on the forefront. Sometimes you're going to have to be a chameleon. And I know it sounded like I'm saying don't be authentic to yourself. I'm not. That's why I put it in here twice. Be authentic to your true self. But sometimes you're going to have to play a role. There's going to be certain settings where you're going to be in life where it's just going to be more beneficial to what you're trying to do, more beneficial to where you're trying to go, more beneficial to what you're trying to accomplish, to play a role. You know what I'm saying? Not to the point where it degrades you or where it places you in a position that's compromising, but you're playing a role because other people are playing a role. This is the truth that we face in the world. Everybody is not good for us. Everybody's not for us. And a lot of people are scheming and trying to make their way to the top however they can as well. So a lot of the 48 laws of power are things that, people may do that may have a negative connotation or denotation on it. Like, one of the laws is make other people do the work for you, but take credit for it. And that may be viewed as something in a negative light, but it's one of the 48 laws of power. And depending on your belief of how true the 48 laws of power are and aren't, that may apply to your pursuit and your journey in life. And some people may perceive that as a negative thing, that, you don't do the work, but you take credit for the work. Personally, I'm not big on that. That's one of the 48 laws I kind of have a issue with, but it is what it is. The most important part of playing your role is knowing your audience. I mean, you just have to know your audience. Like, you have to know your audience. You have to know who you're around, who you're dealing with, what their intentions are, what they're looking for. It's just like going for a job interview. I'm pretty sure that everybody I speak to on this podcast has gone for a job interview. And when you go for that job interview, you put your best self forward. You don't always tell them everything or let them know everything. Like, hey, I had this many tardies at my last job, or I called out on vacation this many times. Like, you always put your best foot forward. And that's what I'm saying in this podcast, basically, is put your best foot forward. Your best foot forward is not necessarily letting all the information about you out or on the forefront. Know when you can and know when you can't. Again, this is about knowing your environment. Knowing you can be honest, knowing you can't be honest. No, not can't be honest, but knowing you have to be strategic in the truth that you tell. You can tell the truth, but you could be strategic about it. Like, if somebody asks you how you feel about something, then you can let them know how you feel about it, but you don't have to let them know, all the way. This is something that I feel like a lot of people do in political settings or settings about these major issues that we have, that people have arguments about on Facebook, and everywhere. It seems we're always arguing about something. And I've learned, just for my sake, that I can't tell people how I truly feel all the time, because one, everybody doesn't need to know how you truly feel. And two, if you go around telling how you truly feel, there's so many different people in this world with different opinions. You're always going to be arguing with somebody about something. I've very there's been very few times I've ran into people that agree with what I say 100%. Either they agree with what I say, or they have some type of, caveat or difference attached to it, or they just don't agree with what I say, and it's been an issue. And I've had a lot of arguments with people based on, what I believe in. But I've reached a point in my life that, it's America. Do what you want to do, believe what you want to believe, as long as it doesn't infringe on the rights of other people. You know, you may not believe the way I believe, so be it. It is what it is, but just exercise what you believe in a manner that doesn't prohibit or interfere with the way another person lives their life or exercises that very same freedom. Just sit back and watch. Listen twice as much as you speak. That's why we have 2 ears and 1 mouth. There's a lot that can be learned. There's a lot that can be obtained. There's a lot of information that you can pull in from just being quiet, sitting back and listening. If you're always talking, if you're always being the center of attention, everybody now knows about you and you know nothing about everybody. Sit back and listen and just, take in information. Always take in information. That's one of the things that I'm trying to cultivate. One of the mindsets that I'm trying to foster is to just sit back, watch, take in information. And, since I've been trying to practice that, I've been seeing so much more. And it's crazy. It's like things are slowing down, or I see things before they happen, or I see things that normally would have happened behind the scenes, or like up in the forefront of my mind, or up in the forefront of the interaction. And it's paying dividends, because, I'm finding out the truth about people before it's being told to me, or before it comes to light, just by seeing their actions and how they maneuver and stuff like that. So there's a lot to be said for just sitting back and just watching, sitting back and just watching. Slow and steady wins the race. That's the tortoise and the hare. The tortoise won through strategy. The hare thought that because of his ability, he would be able to win the race or achieve his goal. The tortoise knew that through consistency and just, doing what he's always done, he was gonna win the race. And it's the same with life. If you build good habits, if you practice consistency, if you practice discipline, you're gonna win through consistency. You don't have to be a cutthroat person. You don't have to be negative. You don't have to be scheming. You just have to live life strategically and intentionally. And through living life strategically or intentionally, you then create this bubble or this aura around you, where you're not gonna fall into the pitfalls and some of the traps that people who are just living life to live life will. You might be able to avoid some of the hurdles or get over them easier, because you're living in a manner that's more conducive with success. And it's something that I'm trying to work towards every day, and I'm getting better at it. I'm getting closer to it, but it's a process, and you can't get frustrated with yourself, because a lot of these lessons you're going to have to repeat, but it's a process, and you have to fall in love with the process in order to enjoy this journey.